You're very welcome to the Irish Political Roundup with me, Roisin de Cleric.
And me, Brophy. And today, Roisin, on our latest episode of the County Councillor Roundtable Caucus, we're delighted to be joined by two of our regular panellists. Firstly, we're joined by Councillor Michael Sheehan, who is an independent councillor who represents the New Ross local electoral area on Wexford County Council. Michael was first elected as a public representative in 1999, and he's also a former Hirlock of Wexford County Council, and he's also a two-time general election candidate. Our second regular panelist joining us this evening is independent councillor John Leahy, who represents the Birr local electoral area on Offaly County Council. John has over 17 years experience as a public representative, and he is also the current Hirlock of Offaly County Council. And also joining us again on the Irish Political Roundup County Councillor Caucus is Independent Ireland's Councillor Tommy Hartigan, who represents the Adair Brackkeel local electoral area on Limerick City and County Council. Tommy was elected to Limerick City and County Council in 2024, taking the second seat for Independent Ireland at the age 23 years of age. And finally, last but no means least, it's one of our own Kilkenny's Councillor Pat Dunphy, who is a Fine Gael councillor on Kilkenny County Council and was first elected in 1999 and has retained his seat ever since. Pat represents the Milltown Municipal District, and he's a former Cathaoirleach of Kilkenny County Council as well from 2023 to 2024, and he has previously worked as a PA to former Fine Gael TD for Carlow Kilkenny, John Paul Phelan. Gentlemen, you're all very welcome to the Irish Political Roundup County Councillor Roundtable Caucus.
Thanks very
Good
much.
evening, how are you?
Thanks, Paul.
Evening all. How we doing?
Good. Michael, we'll go with yourself first. How's everything in Wexford County Council, and what are kind of the big issues that have been coming up? I know you had a big day last week. You had McDonald's opening in New Ross, which is big for the town, and I'm sure you were all loving it. But
See what you did there, Paul. Very good. Yeah.
beat you to it. But
There you go.
another busy week on Wexford County Council.
Yeah, no, it's actually very, just last week we were saying that things are kind of quieting down and we're getting ready for the next couple of weeks, but it actually didn't turn out to be so quiet on the public front. Is because since Monday, literally, there's been either public meetings or public gatherings or public protests pretty much every day going up to today. So it's kept going. Like as time goes, everyone's kind of at this stage, everyone's kind of shoring up and getting their details ready and getting their agendas and their itinerary sorted for anybody traveling to the United States. But you know what, it's been a very hectic week in that regard because locally, and Pat would be able to tell you more on the one they have. There was a big public meeting earlier on in the week about the solar farm or proposed solar farm, and it's really hit a nerve. It's really hit a nerve in rural Ireland. And Paddy's one is a windmill. So in South Kilkenny, in the Glenmore area, Mullavat area, they're talking about putting more wind farms. So the issue is slightly different, but the principles are still the same. Is a lot of communities are very, very concerned about what the impacts of these farms are going to do to their livelihoods for the farmers, their economies for the business, and their communities for the areas that they're in. And Gussaron it's a fairly benign area. It's strong community, strong GA, strong church going, good political turnout, really solid. And the last thing you'd ever describe would be rebellious. But they had a meeting last week covered by Southeast Radio, and geez, the thing was packed to the door. And because of that, now we're going to have a motion before the county council and the forthcoming meeting looking for our county development plan to be amended. But it's really tapped the nerve there, and the problem with that is probably the same with wind farm. Is developers and farmers come to arrangements that suits them, and the best of land has been lost, and the best of arable land has been lost, and dairy land has been lost, and so we'll be looking to have a look and see what we can do about that. And to be honest with you, this is the sad part about the council, the role of an elected member, is we don't have a lot of power to stop that. It's a planning application live, so we have to be very careful what we say. And, as an elected member, we actually have very little powers to stop and to decide where solar farms go or wind farm goes, but particularly with the solar one, because there's no national guidelines. So the planners are left to their own devices, as it were, to come up with that. So that's a huge issue that we're going to have to face down, because if we lose it here, if the planning applications start coming in for other parts of good land, like, you're going to see huge tracts of the county just become giant solar farms. And there is a happy medium in this, and there's a compromise in this, because there's areas that isn't the greatest land for farming, and those lands will be ideal for solar farms. Not, plush green lands on the outskirts of New Ross is not where you would expect to see gigantic solar farms. So we'll do that. And then in the middle of all that then comes the special needs protest that happened on yesterday afternoon. And to be honest with you, what we saw in New Ross, out of nowhere, what the Americans would call a flash crowd. It just, 5 o'clock, everyone said they would meet at a certain point down on the quay where all the roads kind of meet. And I mean, there was a really good crowd. Like, the weather had been abysmal up to about 4:30, and then it just stopped. And then there was quite a large crowd, and people are really, really angry. And for the life of me, and maybe somebody could explain what the government thought they were doing in saying that we're looking at reviewing all the numbers, and we can't guarantee that you'll have special needs assistance that you had before. We can't guarantee the numbers. I would have thought, the basics of 101 was to assure people that you weren't going to lose what you had, and that a review didn't mean the end. But the government seemed to just lose the run of themselves. But I'm telling you now, they have absolutely unleashed the genie out of the bottle on this one, because all of the people that I was talking to there Thursday afternoon, and this is going to be the same countrywide, all of them are now saying that, my son or daughter is going to go into secondary school, and they're being told now there are no places. So don't even, like, you can apply all you want, but if there's no places, your son or daughter, who now has a good support system in the primary, when it goes to post-primary, they just either won't go or they won't have the supports, which is really going to, catapult their learning in a different direction. So, it's one of these things in politics, just scratch your head thinking, what were you thinking when you thought this would be a good move? And then to watch them scramble, to watch the government scramble as quickly as it did, you knew they'd hit a raw nerve and that they were rolling backwards. And, we'll see how it goes. But other than that, like, it is flat out busy this time of year. And then this evening, actually two things broke. This morning, one broke. There's a survey that's done nationwide. It's a Geo Target by AnPost, and it looks at dereliction and vacancy in the towns across Ireland. And the average is 14% across the board. County Wexford in general is below that at 10.6, but my area, New Ross, tends to be a little bit on the outskirts. So we have a 23% vacancy rate at the moment, which is, it's in the right direction. It's not going down quick enough, but it's in the right direction. It's starting to go down. But on the face of it, if I was to tell you 23% of the vacant buildings in New Ross, or 23% of the buildings in New Ross are vacant, you would think that's absolutely terrible. The problem with that is, and from the headline from the paper and headline on the radio, I was talking about it this morning, that actually sounds, alarmist and dramatic. But when you burrow into it and look at the methodology, if a building is up for sale, it is vacant, and that's considered. If a building is going through planning permission and they haven't done anything, that's considered vacant. If a building is under the building acquisitions program, which is the local authorities' money that they get from the government to buy empty buildings in the middle of towns, with the intention of flipping them and getting them developed, that's also considered derelict and vacant. So the definition of derelict and vacant is very narrow. When you burrow into this, and I'd encourage the lads and anybody watching this, burrow into how they decide what is and what isn't a vacant or derelict building. And essentially, because it's AnPost, if they can't deliver a letter to a building, that's their definition of the building vacant. So when your strict definition of vacancy is that narrow, and you can't deliver anything to a building, and that's your definition of vacant, then yes, there's going to be a load of vacant buildings in New Ross because they are empty for particular reasons. They're up for sale, they're up for planning, they're under building acquisition, or they're simply the owners haven't done anything with them yet. So, there are issues there. And then the last one tonight was the absolute bombshell of all. We have 17,000 people homeless. Like, I can't understand for the life of me why this is not such a high priority at the moment. We have 17,000 people, of which I think 5,500 are children. 5,500 are children who are homeless. And to be fair, like I know him, we have our political disagreements, we have all sorts of disagreements with him. I think he's doing his best, but it isn't good enough. I mean, it isn't working. There's something wrong somewhere where we're throwing money at everything and we just can't seem to get a grip of this situation. Because to have 17,000 people homeless in a time of plenty is just beyond credibility. And I think ultimately, and this is an issue that we always kind of fall back into, like housing is the defining issue for this local authority. So it is the biggest thing that we have going here. And it's just all the indications are in terms of income and thresholds and the availability, just heading in the wrong direction. So, it's something that they're going to have to try and double down on. But other than that, not much is happening.
And Michael, would you say obviously one of the biggest drivers of these homelessness figures is the fact that the rental market doesn't work for anyone? Do you think
I think, Paul, I don't
the
know.
new tenants? Do you think this new tenancy rules is going to do anything to kind of help tackle this issue, or is it just a case of just get out and just build?
No, it's get out and build. It is absolutely get out and build, and they need the local authorities with local authorities crews getting out and building. Um, the whole thing that I have worried with this is that we're now creeping to, what is it, 347,000 is the average median cost for a 3-bedroom house. Like, there are housing estates in County Wexford where the county council has bought literally the entire estate for 350,000 euros per unit. And like, that's not viable. You're not going to be able to continue to keep that going. And it's very difficult if you don't qualify for social housing, you're in competition with the government. You're literally, if you're a first-time buyer, you're competing against the state to buy a house. And there are all sorts of issues with the turnkey developments and the social strategy and all that sort of stuff. Look, I think they need to bite the bullet. I think they need to have a national body of councils building houses on council land, because the way it is going, what's going to end up happening is we're going to have huge amounts of council housing, which I guess is positive, but you're going to have social housing across the board. Like, you'll have very few affordable, and you certainly will have no private housing where people want to buy their own home. So this is a very dangerous mix, because what ends up happening is you end up having large estates over here that are social, large estates over here that are private, and there's no mixing and there's no balance in the society. So like, that's the biggest problem. But to go back to what you're saying, like, to have that many people homeless, like, there has to be something wrong there. And again, and similar to the SNA, it's the communications around this. I mean, they're saying all about these new rental rules. They only apply if you have three or more properties. Like, if you have 1 or 2 properties, you're not considered a large landlord. So these rules really don't apply to you. It's still the status quo. But for a lot of new landlords, like, to have a tenant going in there on a 6-year lease that you can't increase the rent by the 2% or the rate of inflation, whichever is higher, it's not a great incentive for people to get into it. I mean, for some particular reason, and I don't know, maybe the lads feel differently. For some particular reason, we've allowed ourselves into like a group thing to believe that if you're a landlord, you're automatically out screwing the tenants for money and you're doing this and that. So like, we've kind of left ourselves go into that kind of rabbit hole that, we need to come out of it. There is always going to be a role for the landlord. There's always going to be a role for rental accommodation. And as I'm finding now, particularly with the new houses that are coming, thankfully, on stock, and with the new guidelines, there are loads of people out there who are not able to keep their own home, that they're going to need to rent. They're going to need wraparound services. And for a lot of people, when they get the council house, everything walks away from them. They're on their own, and they find it very difficult to make that adjustment, and it always ends up going wallop.
Well, as you saying that, Councillor Tommy Hartigan from Limerick had to leave, and he's sent a message. Please accept my apologies, guys. I have a young family facing eviction and have just arrived at my door. I have to pass out on tonight, and my apologies to the other councillors as well, and chat soon. So look, it's like there's people knocking on councillors' doors, and I'm sure you've all had them on your door.
Well, can I tell you, Russ, and like, I've journaled this and Pat will talk of this, the complexity of the problems that are now landing. No, I don't mean to be flippant, literally landing on your doorstep. The complexity is just insane, because when I started off in the 20th century as a councillor, when I started off way back when, like people came and said, "Look, I need a council house. I'm living at home. I have a young child or a young family, that sort of stuff." It's not like that now. Those are the easy ones, and back then they were the hard. Now the hard ones are coming to now. That neurodivergent issues. They have family issues. They have access issues. They can't. There's all sorts of complications in, and and we've discussed it before. Like as elected members, our housing policies are literally all in straitjackets. If you are a couple and your income is over, a certain threshold, it doesn't make a difference if you're €1 or €1,000. If you're over the threshold and you come to me and say, "Listen, I want to go for a council house, but my combined income is over whatever it is per week," and once you're off, you're off. Like there's no tapering out. It's a cliff edge. So the difficulty is, what do you tell someone like that? What do you tell two people who are working? And that is typical. Like the complexity of how it's all gone. It's become overly complex. It's become overly slow, and the average turnaround now for an application. I don't know. Maybe the lads will have different in their respective counties, but the average turnaround time now for a local authority application is 3 months. I mean, it should not take 3 months to decide whether you're eligible or not eligible for a county council housing list. And beyond that, it's 3 to 4 or 4 to 5 years for the choice-based letting, and to wait for a house to come around your way. So, it is very. Tommy's kind of speaking for all of us there when he just had to drop and run, because it's gone so complicated now that it's not as simple as literally I need a house. It's I've been evicted. Where do I go if I don't go? And sometimes, and this is not a slight, even though it'll come across it, sometimes the housing officials lack a little bit of compassion. They lack a little soul. They might say, "Well, if you are homeless, you have to go to, this homeless shelter, and you have to go to that homeless shelter." And you're sitting there, you're like, "No, well, hold on a second. Why should a family split into two and go here or go there?" So sometimes you feel there's a lack there. Now we have a few officials in County Hall who are really on the ball at that sort of stuff, and they're very compassionate, and they always work something out. But if they were to apply the policy to strict adherence, we would have a much more, dare I say it, a Thatcherite regime when it comes to housing than we do at the moment. But it's so complicated, and it's so unfair to people who are in a vulnerable state. There's not a lot of love out there for them.
God, yeah. And look, a county council had to leave, as Tommy had to leave, and deal with a young family in dire straits as well. So thank you so much indeed, Councillor Michael Sheehan. And you might have to be popping off now. So to our viewers, if you see Michael go, he has to pop off as well to...
They'll be clapping. They'll be clapping. Shut him up. Shut him up.
We'll turn now to Councillor John Leahy from Birr, County Offaly. John, what's coming up in your county council? Are you bringing any motions, or any of Michael Sheehan's motions to the council, or what's happening in your area?
Yeah, thanks very much, Roisin and Paul and Patrick, and hello, Michael. Michael's nearly like my new best friend now. I see him every week. I see him more than my wife. I just to maybe start off where Michael finished off. He's so right in terms of the complexity of it. And in some ways, when we have a lot of new councillors that have been joining the podcast for the last couple of weeks. And in some ways, I kind of feel sorry for them in some ways, because they're trying to understand the system. Michael, Paddy, and myself can kind of vet stuff and kind of know where to go and who to go to. I know we covered it before, but there's so much coming at us so quickly. There was a time before my time, and I don't know if Michael can remember this. He doesn't look old enough to remember this, but if you were talking to a councillor way back in the day, someone would actually physically have to write to the councillor. They'd expect that the letter's going to take a couple of days. They expect it's going to take 2 or 3 weeks to get back, or longer. Now it's so instant. It's text message, WhatsApp, it's emails, Facebook. Facebook is a disaster for politicians at the moment. You put up something good, you get criticised. Why didn't you do it for me? You put up something bad, and you get a mob in on top of you. It's just impossible to get it right. But yeah, I suppose the difficulties, and Michael touched on the housing. Everything just seems so choked. We're in an era where people can contact us so quickly, and they want quick responses, but yet we can't get them on the other side. And that goes across not just in the local authority, across every department. We've never as much people working in the public sector, but everything seems to be choked and nothing seems to be able to get done. And the good has gone out of most things by the time you get them done. But Michael has kind of comprehensively touched on the housing, so we're probably, we feel the pain in regards to that. I suppose on the other front is what I had this week is I was kind of gone green this week. We had a green energy conference up in, or not conference, but award night up in Dublin. We were up in the Clayton Hotel. Offaly was nominated for an award. Unfortunately, we didn't get it. But interestingly enough, it's amazing that all the power brokers, all the big companies, multinational companies were all at the awards. And in fairness, they seem to be adapting this green model in terms of what they're doing with their businesses and how to go green, let it be with solar panels on their buildings and various EV charging points and whatnot. But so that's the other side of it. That was a late night Tuesday night. Didn't get home till 2. And I was back in on the hotel on Wednesday morning, bright and early at 9 o'clock. We had our own green energy conferences from an Offaly perspective. And I suppose, Roisin and Paul, this is a very, very positive story in the fact that we organised, the local authority organised a conference with all the department officials, politicians, power brokers like the ESB, Borna, Electricity, SAI, everybody that was anybody was invited to it. I suppose the story that we were saying is that we want to be that energy hub. And ironically, it's amazing. Michael was at a protest in Wexford, whereas we're kind of lucky in some ways. We've embraced the whole idea of renewable energies through offshore wind turbines. We have, I think, 11% that's providing the national grid. We have 14% that's providing the national grid on the battery storage. On solar panel, we have something like 10%. So we're one of the lead. We are the top leading local authority in the country when it comes to renewables and delivering. We reckon we probably have somewhere like 15 or 16% in the next 3 to 5 years in providing into the national grid. So it's ironic to think Offaly was known for the bogs, and we're gone from brown to green is what they're calling it now. So we're gone from extracting peat to generate power to now doing the quite opposite. We're looking at renewables now to generate that. And I suppose what we're hoping, and I've spoke about it on the program before, is that we're looking at maybe data centers. So we have vast amount of bog, and there's never be houses on it. There'll never be infrastructure for obvious reasons. So we're looking at maybe exploiting that, getting kind of maybe power plants or battery storage plants in there, and try to maybe encourage the likes of these big multinationals, these data centers that don't want in Dublin. We'd like a few of them for very obvious reasons. And I know there's a whole environmental issue, and I know we had a speaker previously before, and he gave a brilliant explanation of why we shouldn't have data centers. But I suppose we're not cash rich in Offaly. We don't have the big industry that you're saying that like one big industrial park in Dublin would actually just wipe us out in terms of what they'd bring in comparison to what we'd have across the county. So we kind of have to, beggars can't be choosers. So we have this policy and we're driving it forward. So that was a great morning on Wednesday morning. A lot of power brokers there, a lot of good business people there, and we're kind of saying the doors are open. So it's amazing the contrast between Michael at a protest and us trying to maybe encourage. Now they're within reason, I suppose. The guidelines for the wind turbines has to be modified and updated. We can't have turbines 500 meters from a house. I know it's 700 meters now, and maybe that needs to be extended. So, but I suppose the reason we're saying it is we've a vast amount of bogland that needs to be used. A couple of other things there, very, very quickly. I suppose potholes, and more potholes. It's the time of the year for it. Unfortunately, when it rains in Offaly, no different than most places, we've a lot of, while we might have a lot of bog, we've a lot of bog roads. So when it's a lot of rain, we develop potholes. When there's a lot of sun, we develop potholes and cracks. So it's a big issue at the moment. Councillors are chasing, patching units are flat out at the moment. Just that time of the year, the roads are wet. They can't get to dry quick enough, and potholes develop. So that's probably one of the biggest things I'm taking on at the moment. We're going through naming policies for the estates and roads. Previously, developers would come in and just name a road, name an estate. Offaly County Council now putting policies in place for that. Again, I was very busy on the whole housing side of it. The adaptation grants. There's the disabled person grants, there's a mobility grants and adaptation grants. So adaptation grants will be for, say, building on extensions, and so it's anyone that would have a disability. Very busy at the moment. We took a decision in Offaly to stop taking application forms October of last year because we just couldn't deal with the demand. We've now opened them up again, say the first week, second week in February. So you can imagine it's crazy at the moment. believe it or not, taking a lot of phone calls as well in regards to the new grants for the government, because it's amazing, and Michael touched on it, and Patrick will probably agree on this. The minute the government announce something, we are the first protocol to find out what do you actually mean by that. You know, you have a cohort of people that are out there at the moment that look up the internet, that know more than me and you in terms of navigating the internet, to have it off their tea. But there is people out there that hear something on the radio, hear something maybe down the town, they ring the local councillor to find out exactly what's going on. So a lot of calls coming from that. And that's really it, folks. It was a very, very busy week in terms of phone calls and whatnot. And you tend to get that, and I don't know if Patrick would agree with this. When you get a consistently rainy days, damp days, dark days, you get a lot of calls coming through the phone, believe it or not. It's the mood of the nation. And it's amazing. People are boxed in, things annoy them that wouldn't normally annoy them if the sun was shining. And we kind of get the blunt of that. Do you know what I'm saying? So that's really it for me from this week. Like Michael, very busy, and it's only getting busier with community groups at the moment.
Well, I hope you're not going too green or you're going to turn into the Green Party. That's all.
No, that won't happen. No, no. I wouldn't be elected, Roisin.
And you know what? I miss my turf. I miss my turf.
Yeah, but I tell you, it's amazing. Like, we had a Green councillor, Mark Hackett, and he was excellent. He was so practical about what needed to be done, and none of us would disagree with him. He wasn't far extreme.
Yeah.
Lost his seat, just absolutely wiped out. Just that was it. The brand, the Green, gone, boom.
Yeah.
So it's amazing. Like, but I find in the chamber that, you know, we have some people now from the farming community in the chamber now. We've people in the business sector, teachers. You know, it's amazing when you have the diversity in the chamber, the way it opens up conversations and opens your mind up to think a bit different.
Yeah.
But yeah, I was sorry to see him go now, because he was very, very practical.
You know, I love diversity, and I love that because, as you said, it gets people thinking, and listening to other people's points of view. It gets us to think, oh, well, you know, I could change my opinion there, or I've learned something today, or I've learned a different perspective. So, and this is why we love the County Councillors Caucus, is having different perspectives.
Yeah.
It's just, again, as you said, it's the Green Party brand, and but I miss my turf. I remember I never ranted or raved, but I remember when Eamon Ryan's banned the turf, I was on Twitter. I think that was the first time I went on a rage on Twitter. My turf, I love my open fire, and I do. But
Yeah.
I love my fire. And when my son bought the cottage, that's what was the deciding factor. It had an open fire. So
Wow.
yeah. So thank you so much for that, Councillor John Leahy up in Birr, County Offaly. And to our home county here, to our very own Councillor Patrick Dunphy. Thank you so much for joining us. You've been on the Irish Political Roundup before, but not here on the County Caucus. So you're very welcome to the County Councillors Caucus panel discussion.
Yeah, thanks, Roisin, and thanks, Paul. Yeah, it's great to be with you. You're doing a good job and trying to get around the whole country, I suppose. Is not an easy thing to do, but you're getting there bit by bit, yeah.
Yeah, we're getting there and enjoying meeting different people.
Exactly.
And the diversity, and you know, and giving people a platform, Pat, to actually, and other county councillors to actually meet one another. And then this week there was two conferences on, one here in Kilkenny and the other one, would you believe, they're both in my hometowns? Well, here in Kilkenny last Saturday, and then the other one up in Buncrana, just down the road from Derry. So, and they were all, so there was, and county councillors met in both areas. So it's nice to be able to bring people together where they know one another.
I got to try the Buncrana chips as well, Roisin.
It's good to hear other people talking. I mean, you can hear tonight there, even with the lads, you know, the difference. You know, there are differences, and people have different issues in different parts of the country and handle them different. And you know, like Michael was on about solar panels. There's quite a few of those after getting planning permission in South Kilkenny there for a while, and they don't seem to resurrect the same type of response from the public as the wind turbines, which he did mention too. I think there's quite a few of them in Offaly as well there, I think, right. John. But down here now, like I know in the South Kilkenny area, there's one particular one in at the moment with a commissioner and Planola. That's in the Ballyfassy area, Glenmore, as Michael referred to there. And I know the Kilkenny County Council and the councillors are opposed to that for a lot of reasons, to be honest about it. And I think one of the things that come across is that the legislation hasn't really been updated since 2006. So what does that suggest? You know what I mean? When something is important, then we do need power, but like you need to have a lot of rules around it where it's acceptable, where it's not. And you know, like this particular one in Glenmore area of South Kilkenny, there's already a planning application near that area for 21, and there's 12 up already. You might see, if you're coming down the M9, you see a dozen of them there in we say in the Cllr area off to the left. And there's another application just over the hill. So if all of those get me, there'll be over 50 turbines within a short area, which is quite a lot. That would do a lot of power. You know what I mean? It seems to be, you know, way over the top in my view. But we'll have to wait and see what happens now. It is in with a commission. This particular one is in with a commission planada there, and that'll take a bit of time, I suppose, before there's a verdict on it. But I suppose around South Kilkenny, like in the southeast in particular, I think the weather has been atrocious as far as rain is concerned there in a while. We've heard about Enniscorthy, but and a lot of other areas. And between Tipperary and Kilkenny, down near Carrick-on-Suir, a bridge has been damaged. Now, it wasn't one for vehicles, but was pedestrian, cycles, all of that. But that bridge is gone. It formed part of the South Leinster Way. It's in Kilkenny, and as I said, borders on between Piltown and Carrick-on-Suir, basically. So look, that's something that's probably going to cost a lot, and they were trying to seal it off, but now I think most of it is gone anyway. Nobody would get across it. There were some people trying to cross it there with a hole in the middle of it. We were trying to advise them to keep away from it. You know, it's too dangerous. But anyway, it's over the Lingaun River. It's a tributary from the River Suir that goes up as far as Wine Gap, Tullahart, Wine Gap area. You know, we're often trying to knock row up that particular area of the country, and sad to see it go, but it will have to be put back, and money will have to be got, and I don't think we can dilly-dally around it. It is part of the South Leinster Way, and we've got to keep that going. That's a walkway for a lot of people, and you know, it's a well-used bridge when it was standing, when it was there. So hopefully funding will come about. But I suppose going back to the rain that we've had down here, and I've just noticed a lot of the local roads, you see those the cracks developing where are good roads now. And there's quite a lot of by roads, we say, all over the country. There's an awful lot of them in South Kilkenny, I know that much. And they're all damaged to a certain extent, and the normal funding that you get for roadwork schemes won't be there to do that. So I am hearing that the government are coming up with some kind of an emergency fund, and you know, let's hope that it comes soon, because those roads, once they start going, they're going to deteriorate very, very quick, and you know, not good for cars hopping into them. You know, they do quite a lot of damage over time if they weren't sorted. So that's one kind of a thing that we're watching and waiting to see what will happen, what kind of funding will be announced for those, and hopefully they'll be able to fix up the troublesome ones. And I suppose during the week too, there we had maybe going back to last week or early this week, the N24 and the N25. Now the N24 is the road that goes between Waterford and Limerick, the main road. Desperate road, to be quite honest, in most areas, and very dangerous. A lot of people have lost their lives on it. A lot of people have been badly injured on it, and very, very difficult to get a move on. But at least this year they've given funding there for the to commence phase 3, which is I suppose, the detailed design and the environmental aspects of the road. Usually, I think on roads that's about a 2-year project, so we'll have to get funding next year to continue on with that. But the quicker the better, because there are too many people losing their lives on these roads, no matter what the TII and the NTA and all of those say or do, it's happening. So there isn't, you know, when you look at the better roads where you have dual carriageways or where you have motorways and that. There are thankfully very few accidents on them. There is a lot of them, but very, very few. So they're much safer. That's where the money should be going at the moment. If you don't do it now, you'll never do it. Or you might do it in 10 years' time, it might be twice the price. A lot of these, if they weren't done in the past, well, they'd have been much cheaper than the cost of those type of things, because a lot of them are oil-based, is just rocketing all the time. So the quicker they get do those particular jobs, the less money they're going to cost. The N25, for those that don't know, is from Glenmore, the bridge in Glenmore, the bypass of New Ross towards Waterford there. And again, that's probably the most dangerous road in the country. The amount of people that are based on the amount of people that have lost their lives and the amount of injuries, families affected, it's shocking, to be quite honest about it. And we continually have to keep on about that hard. And talking about meetings there on the N25, the lads were talking about the meetings that turned up for the solar farm down in Wexford and different areas, but there was maybe 600 people in the Rue Glen Hotel in Rue Glenmore area during 2025, when the public really had to get involved because nobody was listening, to be quite honest. So they are listening now, and I hope it continues to be that way. But that did get funding to progress to phase 3 as well. And so we're reasonably happy. I thought there'd be more funding, but I think it's I suppose an engineering type of work, on paper, where you'll design a road. So probably it wouldn't be the most expensive part of progressing it on. And the next stage there will be the legal stage, with maybe CPOs or planning, and maybe a board commission plan all as well. So that's the next stage, and then after that, the construction, and that's where the money comes in. So I hope they're thinking of that and putting a few bob aside for it. That's kind of on the roads. There is one going that Michael has gone, but there is a road, the R704 from Mullavat to New Ross, and I mean, we're kind of trying to advise hauliers to go down to the end of the M9 and the Waterford bypass and to go to New Ross that way. It's a little bit longer, but you're on a far safer road and far better for trucks. It was only about 2 weeks ago again, a truck. The edges of it's a narrow enough road for a regional road, and the edges drop down quite a bit. You could drop 6 inches, maybe more, maybe a foot in bad weather. A lorry goes into that, or any vehicle goes into it, and you won't come out. And a fairly big lorry went into it there a couple of weeks ago, had to be pulled out. The road was closed for 4 hours. It's only one of the many things that are happening on that road. And residents are actually frightened by what's going on there. So those type of things, I think, we have a meeting next week now, and those type of things will have to be raised at it. And everything is slow when it comes to council doing stuff and the state doing stuff. As somebody said it there earlier, I think John was saying that there's there's a slowness trying to get things done, and I think we're actually, my comments on that would be that we're tying ourselves up in knots with boxes to tick. Everything. How many things have been added to forums and everything? When we were only hearing 5 years ago, when a good few years ago anyway, that like with the advent of the computers and all that type of stuff, that we're going to have far less paperwork. The opposite has happened. And those are the type of things that are making jobs dear, because they're too slow. And I think they should have a serious look everywhere. A few examples there. Any of the Department of Social Welfare, and this probably happens across, from my experience anyway, every department, but social welfare, if you have an application for carers allowance or any kind of social welfare stuff, might have been done one time in a month or 6 weeks, maybe 2 months at most, but now six months, maybe if you're lucky. Now and nobody's saying anything about it. And this is, if that was happening in a private business and your work was being pushed out like that, you wouldn't be in business. So that has to be looked at to see why are they gone slow, number one, and number two, how much, what kind of paperwork, what type of stuff, what do people have to do or submit in order to get things over the line? So, it needs to be looked at because, and you rarely hear about it. Now, I'm glad John, I think you mentioned to John earlier there, did you, about
Yeah.
how slow things are gone?
Yeah.
But you rarely hear politicians, and they know this because their offices and very, very little been said about it. And I think it's a crucial thing to be quite honest about. I suppose the other thing is I suppose the Irish water. I suppose what do you say about Irish water? Only that, like, and I was listening to the comments on housing, which is an issue and a big issue. We need housing, we need more of it, but you need Irish water to deliver quickly, and you need you need employees as well, I suppose. You could have all the money in the world, but you need the people to do it. And a lot of companies nowadays are looking for people, and not enough people to do the work that's already there. And there are factors that will slow down things, like building houses, and any other outdoor work we say that has to be done. But yeah, the Irish water. I mean, it's slow. They're slow again. There's a lot of boxes being ticked with them. The money they're given, it's gone up quite a lot, but it's not next or near enough that'll be needed to do sewage and water all over the country. Not next or near enough money, and they need more staff as well to be doing all of that. So they're kind of problems that are there that need to be solved. If it's not sorted or solved at this particular time, with a fairly good budget there every year, if it's not sorted, when will it be sorted? When will the infrastructure be put in for sewage and water so that houses can be built in places where they can be built? So look, it's serious and it needs to get a lot of attention, I think. Down in the area near Waterford, I suppose I'm out in Mooncoin. I'm only maybe 5 or 6 miles there from Waterford City there, and as you go to Waterford, you have Ferrybank, quite a large population there, and quite a large population expected over the coming years. Where I think Waterford's population must be around 60,000 now, and that will be grown to 80 or 90,000, which would be a fair sized city. But anyway, Ferrybank is. Most of it is in County Kilkenny, some of it is in County Waterford. But there's a lot of work with the Greenway there. There's a Greenway coming down coming over from New Ross, and there'll be a spur into Woodstock and Innisteak, and also into Slieve and Glenmore. And it will cross over a bridge there, the sustainable river crossing bridge in the middle of the quay there in Waterford. It crosses there and heads out and joins up with the Waterford Greenway, which goes all the way to Dungarvan. Now, greenways are a very popular thing at the moment. A lot of people use them, walking, running, some of them for cycling again. And I suppose there's this particular one, I think it's 24 kilometres. There's about 14 kilometres of it done at the moment. So they're getting there. It'll be a big kind of advantage there in the southeast. And like, I hope people use it, which they seem to be. The parts that are done at the moment, before it's even opened, there are people using it. So I think it's going to be very popular. And the North Quays there in Waterford is another major development under RRDF funding, and or URDF funding, the urban area. That's where they're moving the railway station, which happens to be under a rock face where you'd have quite a few landslides from time to time, dangerous enough area. So that's been moved over to that particular area, maybe probably nearly a kilometre over the road. And also there's other developments planned, like I think it's 300 apartments and two hotels. One of them a small type of hotel, another one a big one. So there's quite a lot of work going on with government funding, and it is a bit of a nuisance to people at the moment, I suppose, with so much work is going on. But it's good, it's positive nuisance, a positive type of thing that leads to a lot of disruption. But it's happening, and they're making a lot of progress on that. Now, I don't know what else I can really bring up. There's probably a lot of things you could, but
I have another really a good advantage. coming to Waterford, and you're down there in Mooncoin, 6 miles away from Waterford, is the new Waterford Airport.
Yeah, 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 that's I suppose for a long time they were trying to get that going, and we unfortunately the state didn't help. They didn't give funding, but then a private investor came on board, and the latest on that is that like there's a few meetings and votes to take place among shareholders and people like that, which seem to be very positive. So in a month or two, I think that airport will be underway. They have to extend the runway, take in bigger planes and that is going to happen now by all accounts. And you know, a lot of people in Kilkenny and Waterford have put their shoulders to the wheel. They've been making the case. Kept making the case when things were looking bad, and now seem to be rewarded. And just thankfully, the investor is on board, and you know you'll be able to land bigger planes, and you'll be like flights over and back to England and parts of Europe, I suppose, eventually. And like it's fantastic. So you're right. I think that's a good news story in the southeast area, and I think a lot of people in the southeast will relish it and they'll use it because nobody likes to go up to Dublin to that traffic going into Dublin. A lot of the time, early in the morning, people go to work and you might have to get a flight. The cost of parking, you know, it's huge. Everything comes so dear in that respect. So the quicker, the sooner, the better. That's all I can say to have it done. But things are looking well and going well.
That is
And
great.
going back to the whole thing about slowness, as you were talking about, as regards getting answers and getting people, getting their entitlements, in time. With Waterford Airport, it took an American investor probably 2 weeks to decide, yes, I'm going to invest in this, where the state was just kicking the can down the road for like 20 years. So it just goes to show what can be done when you have the resources and the will to do it.
When you have the money, Paul, that's things get done. But they should, like going back to what we were saying again, things should be happening much quicker. Things are too slow in this country at the political level and at the department level, the council level as well. Things are too slow. There's no question about that. Will it be looked at? I don't know, but it needs to be.
And also, the
Yes.
owner of the Waterford Airport also bought a massive Castletown Knox estate. Is that in your constituency?
Yeah, Castledown Estate is in Piltown. Again, I spoke about Piltown and the parish of Piltown with the bridge in Kilkenny. But yeah, the Castletown Estate, a fine estate, you know, well looked after. He's doing quite a lot of work around it, and you know, he's maintaining it, which is good. You know, from what I know, he's an American man. He's over and back all of the time.
Is he? He's
Yeah,
an oil and gas man from Texas, isn't he?
I think so. I think so. Yeah, yeah.
Have you met him?
No, we haven't.
He's like
No,
a Scarlet Pimpernel, is he? You seek him here, you seek him there, and you seek him everywhere.
yeah. We haven't met him now. I don't think we will be meeting him. But you know, I suppose he likes to keep quiet. But he's spending the money on things, and
That's what matters.
and that's what matters to the area. It's great for the area, and also great for the southeast. That runway is going to be upgraded to take on the big jets and that. So, like, fair play to him. That's all I can say.
Down in Wexford, with McDonald's, they're saying they're loving it, and in Waterford, we're saying, "Come fly with me."
Very good,
And
very
in
good.
Offaly, we're saying, "You hold my dada."
Very good.
Now, gentlemen, you know, we're talking about Irish water. If you have both been in politics for a long time, what would your big solution if you had lots of money, like the American investor in Castletown Knox Estate and in Waterford Airport? What would you do to fix the Waterford infrastructure here in Ireland?
The water infrastructure.
Yeah.
Well, look at you need sewerage where you have housing. You need water as well. You know, and it costs money because the pipes that you put down now need to last. I mean, it's not like ones were put down years ago. The Irish Water are in charge of all that now. That's gone from the council. For many years, the council were in charge of all that. But I think, you know, they were there at a time probably when the pressure wasn't as great. I think it's in the last I suppose 15 years that that the population has gone up and more housing is needed, more housing estates are needed.
But
And
how would you fix the water infrastructure? If money, the Texan oil and gas man said, there's a blank check, there's so 100 million, a billion. How would you both fix the Irish
Yeah,
water?
see, Roisin, yeah, and Patrick is kind of touched on it there. The problem, and I covered this before, when Irish Water was set up, it was set up that the fact it was going to be like the property tax. There was going to be a payment per house, and that's what was going to finance that. So when they took all the historic problems of the local authorities, like before, the local authorities probably got away with murder here because they set up Irish Water because they realised that there was historic issues in the ground, pipe work that Patrick spoke about that was decaying and whatnot, and they knew themselves that it needed an overarching body to deal with this. But the problem you had is when Phil Hogan set it up, he set it up under the funding model that per household that they expected were going to bring X amount of billions in per year or millions, hundreds and hundreds of millions. Then the protests happened, and what happened was at that stage they were too far gone up the road. That service level agreements with council staff, they had taken on council staff, then they put a hierarchy in there, and then they had another hierarchy. So then what happens? It became unsustainable in terms of nearly wages and union reps and everything else that goes with it. They're getting through that there at the moment. Now we had Irish Water in at the request of the members into in committee meetings, and in fairness to them, I will say one thing: they just cannot get the handle with it. Now the government's after giving them an injection of cash, but that's to deal with the historic issues that are there. That's not to talk about the increase the number of houses that have been built. Now we have a housing crisis, but like we are adding 30,000 average houses to the stock every year for the last 10 years, 10 or 15 years. But now I'm saying that's not even including what the private leads coming on board. That's kind of in towns and villages and whatnot. So it's very, very hard to keep ahead of it. Money will solve it, but then the problem you have in is getting the contractors, the level of contractors you need for it. I do think that the water coming from the Shannon the whole way through the Midlands and up to Dublin is going to solve a multitude of problems. Now it's going to be 5, 10 year away, but when that pipeline comes through, that's going to be a water connection coming the whole way through. That's going to eliminate a lot of historic pipe work that's there at the moment, and you'll see them starting to lay new pipe and whatnot. But I wouldn't envy them now, and I've heard them in committee, and they've been very open and frank. And I don't think they're sitting on their hands. I think they've inherited a mess, and I think they're only starting to get money now, and money over a prolonged period of time will get to the point that we need to get to.
Because they're about 100 years old. I remember we had Dunphy's former Fine Gael County Councillor Patrick O'Neill on with Cork's Deputy Ken O'Flynn on, and Ken O'Flynn said it'd take 99 years, didn't he say? About 90 to 100 years to fix all the pipes in Cork, and because the pipes are in there from over 100 years, all copper pipes, or destroyed. So that would help Leash, Offaly, Leash, and going to Dublin. But how could we fix the southeast water problems apart from so it's down to money, it's down to contractors. And getting the contractors and then getting the people then to do it then.
But it's all down to money. There's no question about that. And then staff and again, maybe contracts for state bodies seem to be always larger or bigger than maybe if like private business. You know what I mean? They seem to charge quite a lot to the state bodies, and don't ask me why some of them appear to be so dear, but like I haven't really seen any figures as a kind of a lower level, you know. But anyway, I don't know what it's money. It's the money that the state will have to get in and supply, and now is the time. Like that money won't be always there. Like what, you know, the way we're relying on tax from the US companies, you know, there's quite a lot coming in that way. Like, should some of that be put away for this type of work, for infrastructure work? I think it should, to be quite honest about it. You know, they're probably putting some of it into the state budget, which, you know, it is kind of dangerous if something happened, if there's a turn in the economy, if some of those companies weren't going as well. But they seem to be, so long may it last. But like the state needs to be looking at that, because you'll only build a certain amount of houses with the infrastructure that's there at the moment, you're going to have to improve it. And Irish Water is a big one in all of that.
Because you can't fix the housing problem until you fix the water infrastructure
It's
problem.
all part and parcel of it. Yeah.
I'm learning. You see, gentlemen, I am learning from speaking to you all.
Yeah, and Roisin,
I think yeah. I think you were well aware of the Irish Water thing now.
yeah, and
Yeah.
Roisin, just on that point, like Edenderry would be a big town. There's three big towns in Offaly, as we call big towns. Like you have Tullamore is the capital town, 15,000 population. You have Edenderry, which is about 7,500, and then you have Birr then about maybe 5,500. But if you take Edenderry, for example, they cannot build one more new house. Now that's an exaggeration, but you cannot build maybe one new housing development in Edenderry at this point in time in the town because of the capacity issue. And that issue won't be resolved till 2029. That's what Irish Water are claiming at this stage. So there could be 100,000 people or 100 people homeless, and there could be developers ready to come in to build. But at the end of the day, until Cllr have the ways and means and capacity to get that done, you cannot build an extra house in Edenderry at this point in time, and a scheme of houses.
Yeah.
And both John and Pat, are you finding Irish Water better? Has their communication style has that improved? Because before when you both started, you could pick up the phone to the
Mm.
local water section and it's done. But now you have to go, oh no, that's Irish Water, and then the contractor has to come from Cork to do like a 10-minute job. Um,
I think to
is
answer your question, I
is
think
it
the
is it improving, or is that something that
it's
could
not
be
like
could
it's
could be sorted?
like we were dealing with the council. I think we're councillors, so you have more influence at the time with councillors for various different things that you've had to do at that time. But Irish Water are not a local base; they're a national body, if you know what I mean. And we don't sit around the table with them every couple of weeks or every month or whatever discussing various things. So they really are out on a limb there. I find like they will talk, they will discuss things, but and they're pretty good to councillors and TDs and that for answering queries. But like you're mainly getting a standard reply. You have no influence or no push there to try and get something done. That's where I see the loss. There's no great power with them. They can really tell you what they want.
Now,
Yeah, I agree.
What do
I
you
agree.
think, John?
Yeah, I agree, Patrick. Yeah, I think
Yeah.
once you can't, once Ishkir don't have to listen to us. We can bring them into in-committee meetings, public meetings, and whatnot. You get the stock answer. They have tried to improve the communication levels because we have been hammering them fairly hard. But you're right, Patrick. Patrick's 100%. You're still going to get the same stock answer. It might be presented to you in a better way and a more mannerly way and a quicker way, but you're still getting really nowhere on some of the legacy issues that are there. When they were part of the local authority, they were part of the management. You weren't happy, you go to the county manager, chief executive, director of services. Hey, I'm not getting an answer here. What's happening? You get an answer fairly quick. And I suppose we're missing that element of it at the moment.
and where would you stand, lads, on Irish Water Cllr going forward? Should it be reformed? Should it be scrapped? Should it be what
I
what do you
think
what do you think?
I think myself, Paul, I think the model is probably right. I wouldn't like to see it going back into local authorities, to be honest with you. I don't think they would have the capacity to deal with it. Because in fairness, they never dealt with it when it was there. And there was a like what Irish Care are dealing with now, and I'm repeating myself, is historical issues that are in the ground that were never dealt with by the local authorities anyway. I just think it's going to take time. I would like to see a shift back to local authorities because then you have back down to 30 odd local authorities dealing with water issues again. I think the model just needs to be bedded in, get a couple of the big problems sorted in terms of the infrastructures for various towns and villages, to let the growth happen. And I think that just will happen. It's just going to take time.
Yeah, I'd agree. Like they need more money to do more. That's one thing. It probably won't go back because the cost of setting it up must have to be spent at the moment.
Yeah.
Like well, it's probably too large anyway. I could never see that happening now. But I think they should be more amenable to local people, when local councillors, exactly like when there are issues. Like we don't be talking for the sake of it or following up things for the sake of it. Like any local councillor or local people will know exactly the problems in their area, so they should be listed and trying to act at least. in time trying to act on the things that we bring up. I don't see that happening that much at the moment, a little bit, but not that much. And that's what worries me. They're probably not going to go back. I agree with a lot of what John said, but that's still hard to make progress with on our local issues that we all have.
Even at a Dáil level, I know Ryan O'Mara, he's Fianna Fáil TD for North Tipperary. We've interviewed him here on the Irish Political Roundup, and he put down a question on Irish Water, and it said, sorry, you have to go to Irish Water. That can't be answered here in the Dáil. So
Wow.
even like an accountability, there's a bit of an issue there still.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's for sure. Like it's fairly serious. Didn't realize that, Paul. But that's fairly serious, considering that they're like the Ishgairin is the arm of the government. No matter what way we look at it, they're not totally on off book, and they do rely on the state. So when you get to that level, it does make me feel too bad now, Patrick. When I hear that you can't get an answer in the doll, it's that just shows you maybe that needs to be dealt with anyway. It's fairly severely.
Yeah, but I'd agree that like if a TD, an elected TD, can't be given an answer, then that's not good. The optics of that are not good, to be quite honest about.
Know what he needs? He needs all the county councillors marching up behind him, up at the door, demanding an answer. How many is it? 900 and
Well, over
960,
900 anyway.
yeah.
960 something, yeah.
Yeah.
That's an army. So if you get all the army of the county councillors marching up to the door and Ishtar, they're going to have to answer you.
Yeah.
Bring
We'll
back
have you, Roisin and Paul, on
You lead us.
shoulder high, and say, "Here's our leaders."
Yeah.
Yes.
Oh, I don't know. They say there's that dairy one again. Get rid of her.
And gents as well. I know it's still a little bit out. In 2029 there'll be a local election, and boundaries will probably be redrawn. Do you see that the number of councillors increasing? Do you see town councils making a comeback? Where do you? I know there's a task force report that has been done on
Yeah.
local
Uh,
government, and it'll be published in the next couple of weeks. But do you see many changes coming down the next number of years?
I can't see any changes in Offaly with regards to the county councillors. I'm looking at the Birr area. No, not a major increase that you would say would justify it. Tullamore area, it's grown. You might have an argument there, even there, no. One thing I do think that probably will come true, Paul, is I think that they will return one town council, say per county. So your capital town will. I do think that's missing. I'd be interested to see what Patrick thinks of that. But I feel that when we lost the Tullamore Town Council, and I'm not in the Tullamore area, I'm only listening to the councillors. There's a lot of teething problems that could be taken away with a town council. Tidy towns is a major thing in a capital town. It's nearly like the biggest organisation in itself. And a lot of the town councillors at the time back pre 2014 would have been the thing. How to keep the town pretty, how do you keep the town alive, do you know what I'm saying, grow it, that type of thing. And I think that's lost a small bit when you have councillors that are trying to cover such a vast amount on the complexity that Michael spoke about. You lose that kind of that emphasis for the town, that major town. So I'd like to see that happening. I'm not saying I'd like to see all the town councils return, and I don't think there's a need for it, but definitely I would see our capital town for a core group of town councillors being returned.
Yeah, I think right, they were taken away a good few years ago now. There was a lot of them, from very small ones up to the bigger ones. In Kilkenny, we had the city was a separate council on its own. That was the only one in Kilkenny. Outside of that was the county council. But I think Kilkenny is a big enough place. Cities that size should definitely. What the population of Eden Derry, you said it earlier. There was a. What
Yeah,
was it?
seven and a half,
7,000. Yeah.
Patrick, yeah.
No, whether or not places with that type of population, I don't know, but definitely the bigger ones should have their own structure, because there's a hell of a difference in the work within the city compared to the county. The county,
Yeah.
there in Kilkenny, it's rural, basically. You have a few bigger type villages, maybe with 3,000-4,000 people, something like that. But definitely what goes on is much different than what goes on in the city. So I think even from that point alone, I think it would be good if it went back to the way it was again. I'm not so sure about the smaller areas. There was a lot of small councils in it before. I
agree,
don't
yeah.
think I'd be too much in favour of that, but definitely the bigger towns should. I think that'd be
Yeah, I agree with you. Yeah, and just to put that in context, Eden Derry is, as I said, 7.5, Patrick, and Birr 5.5, 6. I don't think there's any need for a town council there. But when you get 15,000 people in a town like Tullamore, there are so many more social issues that have to be dealt with. Like a councillor in Tullamore is probably, it's chalk and cheese what I have to deal with. Patrick, are you a rural councillor or are you an urban councillor?
I'm a rural
Yeah,
councillor.
so me
Yeah,
and you were probably singing off the same hymn sheet. If we kept the roads fairly right and keep them from bursting tires, we're
yeah.
fairly good. Whereas you'll probably see it from the guys in the city, the councillors in the city there. They're probably have way more complexity and maybe way more social issues than we'd have.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think like there's a massive difference between the
Mm.
rural and the city. What type of things? Roads. I usually I keep a record. To be honest, I can see how many reps I do, but then I break them down as to what they are, and I'd say 60% of my work is roads related of some sort.
Yeah.
It's a very big factor, not just now, but that's going back for a number of years. It holds about the same. Right, like, and that's probably the type of stuff that we do, that type of thing, and try to improve roads, and and with the money we get, because they're on a certain amount of money, and you have to make that do. But anyway, that's big difference in rural and the city. So I'd agree. I'd agree with what John was saying there as well on it. Yeah.
Well, gentlemen, we've gone over the hour, just topped over the hour. So it's been absolutely a really fast hour tonight. I mean, it's been really engaging, and I actually look so much forward to the County Councillors Caucus Roundtable every Friday night, and because I learn so much, and I know that people are talking about it. They're actually saying, "Oh, we watched the County Council Caucus." Even people just who have no interest in politics. But it's also about getting to know your county councillors, and it's what we keep saying: get to know your county councillors and start understanding the work that you do, because you are the forgotten powerhouse of the political system. And you do, actually, I think you should get paid more, and I think you should have personal.
Good woman.
Georgie, we love you.
I think you should have personal assistants and do in an office. I think that should be in the next program for government, or a budget or something, because you do all the work. You're grassroots. You know exactly where every little well is. If you don't, you know somebody that does do it. You know who the engineers are. You know everything about your local areas, and you should be appreciated more by the general public, the media, and the hierarchy of the political system. There, I'm going to canvass these now, guys.
Thanks, Roisin. Yeah, thank you.
No, but we love the county councillors. I actually enjoy it. I really do. I learn so much. So if the questions I'm asking you guys is probably questions that all of us sitting at home are asking. They may sound really like, that's a really blonde question, but if I'm, they say, but if I'm thinking it was a woman or somebody who knows nothing, then other people are. So this is answering all their questions.
Yeah, I totally agree.
And two, I said to my son is building a cottage in Chleirigh, and he says he's getting somebody out to check his windows and doors. I don't know, but I said, oh, he said, well, I have to fill out these forms. I said, I know the answer. Take it to your local county council.
Yeah, you did right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He says, mommy, he looked at me. It's the first time I think he looked at me and smiled. He says, Mommy, you're right.
Yeah.
So thank you so much indeed, Councillor Pat Dunphy from South Kilkenny, just down the road from us, and our own county, and Councillor John Leahy, who is our resident county councillor. I keep saying to Michael, Sheehan, you're near enough the presenters now, the co-presenters. And also thank Councillor Michael Sheehan, who had to leave earlier, and to also Councillor Tommy Hartigan who had to leave because he had a young family who was being evicted at their door. So it just goes to show it doesn't stop. Even when you're in a meeting, you know what? When emergency comes, you county councillors are on call. When we're in trouble, who do we call? Our county councillors. Thank you.
Okay, I'd like to say thanks to the Paul and Roisin there for the show, and say hello to John. We might meet you around somewhere, John. So
We will indeed, Patrick. Yeah, lovely chatting you online,
yeah,
Patrick.
good,
really
good,
was.
good having a chat, and it's a fair play to the two lads to be doing this every week. Takes up a lot of time and organising and all of that. So well done to you as well. So.
Well done to you. But John, Pat, we'll have you on again. We'll have you, Paul. I'll put you on, and maybe we're actually nearly 2 months in advance now with the county councillors lined up to come on. So
Brilliant.
Paul, see if we get our very own Pat Dunphy on in
Oh, we
April.
will.
We'll get you
We
there.
will.
Nice to have you back on again with us, Pat.
Okay, thanks very much. Yeah.
Thanks a million. I
Great
really
stuff.
enjoyed it.
Thanks, folks.
Good night to you all, lads.
Good
Yeah.
night.
Okay.
Good night and have
Take
a lovely
care.
week.